I'm Paul Secri. We are live. This is now the third Secri Salon session, but the first live stream session that we're having. And I'm so thrilled that we've invited Anthony Roth Costanzo and Brian Waghorn. Anthony, of course, as a countertenor who you all know, and Brian is an amazing pianist who you all know. I was thinking about how I met Anthony, and I think it was originally I won an auction that Anne had so kindly donated, which was a 1982 Bordeaux tasting and dinner at her house. And the dinner was cooked by Anthony, who, by the way, in addition to being a world-class countertenor, is also a world-class chef, which makes me very jealous. But just anyway, we had this fantastic night. And as they say, for me, it was kind of, friendship at first sight with him. We've been fast friends ever since. So, and Brian, I met at a dinner as well through my dear friends Deborah Borda and Corey Taves, and similar kind of friendship at first sight. So again, this is we're very excited that this is the first live stream recital that we're having. At the end of the program, Miron will share a link in the comments and send an email to then ask you to go to a Zoom link, and then we can all see each other, because right now you can only see me and you'll only be able to see Anthony and Brian throughout the recital and not one another. But then at the end, we'll all go to a Zoom link and we can all see each other and have fun asking Anthony and Brian lots of questions. So with that, I will turn things over to Anthony.
Hi everyone. I'm here in the most beautiful home. I want to thank Paul and Mark for having this series, first of all, which is so fabulous. And we were talking about, well, where can we go where there's a good piano? Because my piano, which belongs to my mother and it belonged to her mother, is an 1894 Mason & Hamlin, which is so out of tune from the pandemic, as Brian well knows. We do a lot of work together. So I thought, well, what if we came to Paul's beautiful apartment? And here we are. So thank you for letting us be here where the acoustics are amazing. And I just want to take you through a kind of mini recital. And it's both revealing of me personally and also things that you may not hear me sing usually, which is the fun part of a recital, especially for a countertenor, because, we're sort of always before 1750, after 1950. Those are the two poles we occupy. So it's fun to sometimes fill in with music in between. But I want to start with a piece by Purcell. Of course, Purcell is close to my heart. I've just recorded 2 Purcell pieces on my second album, which I am really excited to be working on right now. And I want to do a pairing of Purcell and Britten to start. One Purcell piece, one Britten piece. Of course, Britten loved Purcell and was very inspired by Purcell. And when I listen to Purcell, I hear not only the great pathos and the great emotion that is in the libretti of a lot of the vocal music that he wrote, but I also hear all the dance rhythms and the kind of folkiness that he incorporates. And I love that so much. And this piece is particularly irreverent. If you listen to the words, it's kind of a saucy little number. And it's from The Fairy Queen, which is how people often refer to me. But I love this piece for its kind of folksiness, which we then will pick up in a different way with Britten. So this is One Charming Night.
One charming night gives more delight than 100 thousand several ways.
So much fun. And this next one by Britten is an English folk song, and he set all of these little folk songs. And this is the Foggy, Foggy Dew, which is both irreverent, and it is kind of irreverent when you hear it, but it has this touching subtext that I've always read into it. But I'm not sure whether that's intended or not. I sort of think it is. So it has all of these different layers, as Britten does. I just wanted to say that people always ask, well, when did you get into opera? When did you start? My parents are both psychologists, and the first opera that was offered to me was when I was 13. I had been doing Broadway as a young kid and all this other stuff, but someone asked me to do Miles in The Turn of the Screw, Britten. And my mother studied PTSD, my dad studied child development, and we would be driving out to New Jersey, where at the New Jersey Opera Festival at the time it was called, I was doing this Britten. And that's why I love opera. I realized this recently because my parents were talking about the complex psychology that Britten was illuminating from James's work in The Turn of the Screw. And it made me understand the communicative power and the depth of expression that was possible in opera. And so this kind of layering that Britten brings out of this piece, something as simple and sort of folksy as this, and of course in something as complex as Turn of the Screw, is what really drew me to opera. So this is the Foggy, Foggy Dew.
When I was a bachelor, I lived all alone, and I worked at the weaver's trade. And the only thing I ever did wrong was to woo a fair young maid. I wooed her in the winter time, and in the summer too. And the only thing I did that was wrong was to keep her from the foggy, foggy dew. One night she came to my bedside when I lay fast asleep. She lay her head upon my bed, and she began to weep. She sighed, she cried, she damn near died. She said, "What can I do?" So I hauled her into bed and I covered up her head just to keep her from the foggy, foggy dew. Oh, I am a bachelor, I live with my son, and I work at the weaver's trade. And every single time that I look into his eyes, he reminds me of the fair young maid. He reminds me of the winter time and of the summer too, and of the many, many times that I held her in my arms just to keep her from the foggy, foggy dew.
It ends in a similar way with a kind of chord like that is both humorous and, to me, poignant. I think she dies is what's happening in that song, but different people do it in a funny way and in a humorous way. The next piece I want to do is recently written for me by a composer I work with. So, we've done the before 1750, now we're on to the after 1950 part, and then we'll go back into the juicy middle. This is Gregory Spears, who's a wonderful composer. And when I was an undergrad at Princeton, Greg was always kind of brooding, as composers tend to do, in the hallways of Princeton. And I kept thinking, who's that? And eventually we started a quartet together with two pianists and a soprano and me. It was called the Owen Quartet because it began with these songs he wrote of Wilfred Owen. And since then, he's been a kind of a creative partner for me. You may know his incredible opera, Fellow Travelers, but he has other really exciting commissions coming up. I wish I could tell you about all of them. But we've worked together for, 15 years. And what I love about working with living composers and Greg is that things are adjusted to your voice. It's tailor-made. He wants to feature certain things. And I remember when he was writing me this piece, which is called Fearsome This Night, based on a libretto inspired by Welsh mythology and written by Christopher Williams, a wonderful choreographer and just a maker in general. And when Greg was writing this piece, he said, what are some pieces that, feature an unusual aspect of your voice? And I thought about this moment in Gluck's Orfeo, where I have to jump. And I see Dominique Lafont here. I love Dominique, and this Orfeo reference is for you, of course. She is mon Eurydice. But it is jumping from a kind of chest voice to head voice, or each singer does it differently. For me, it was this kind of, passage I had to negotiate. And so Greg has taken it even to a further extreme and added these sort of chesty, low opportunities for an almost kind of baritonal moment, and then quite soaring highs. But this piece was written before the pandemic, but then in the pandemic, of course, it took on additional meaning, as so many things do, and Fearsome This Night continues to be a very powerful image. So this is Greg Spears.
my heart thumps with dread as a maid yet half thumps with wild wolves in both the heart of a wolf and the heart of a man may mindlessly rend limb from limb, mindlessly rend limb from limb, limb from limb. 'Tis the mind has the heart, the heart-hearted mind, mindless heart on a whim, less heart on a whim. Oh, fearsome this night. Oh,
Also, I just want to say, Brian is the only person who can really play that. It's actually quite tricky. All of these amazing, almost somewhere between medieval and Baroque kind of, high figures. And you hear, it's a whole story about a person who is half man, half wolf, and caught between identities in that way. And you hear the birds in the forest sort of beckoning the wolf side, the ba, be da, di da, di da, which is really cool. And I love Greg's kind of neo-minimalism. I guess you would say it's neo-Baroque, but there's also a kind of neo-minimalism in there. So it's always a joy to continue working with Greg. So now we get to the in-betweeny stuff. Paul was talking about the dinner where we met at Anne's house. And I remember that same night, I went early to do all my cooking and preparation. And Anne is ever the incredible host and friend and was showing me this amazing china, which I believed, and you'll correct us if we're wrong, Anne, belonged to her mother. And it had pictures of Wagner. Have you seen the Wagner china? Yeah, there's amazing Wagner china. And so in honor of the Wagner china and Anne's whole history with Wagner, and also my desire to sing really loud on a stage with a whole orchestra, repertoire that I want to do someone who is actually closely tied to Wagner, and that is Liszt. and not Liszt's most famous songs, but rather these German songs, which I don't feel like are as well known as the Petrarch sonnets and things like that. But each one is a gem. And I was trying to think recently with Brian, why do I feel these songs so deeply? And I realized that I always talk about my Italian side and my Jewish side, but my Jewish side is a Hungarian Jewish side. And I do feel it somewhere in my blood, the kind of Hungarian Liszt thing. But as you probably all know, Liszt and Wagner were closely connected. And Brian always teaches me about these things. And then I go research them more. But, Liszt was kind of a mentor to Wagner, and a lot of the music that Wagner is writing is happening while Liszt, who's this total superstar, is, reigning supreme throughout Europe. And of course, Liszt's daughter, Cosima, eventually marries Wagner, which is a whole nother saga. But when I sing these German pieces, especially, and I'll point you in the direction of certain things later on, but there are these harmonies and there's a kind of engagement with it, which is the sort of proto-Wagner in certain ways. And I love that about it. In this first one, basically, we're on the Rhine River and we're going into a church and seeing this beautiful portrait. And there's a kind of otherworldly joy, and that spirituality that is there, this kind of straddling spirituality and the earthly pleasure, was very much something Wagner picked up on. So this is Liszt's Im Rhein im schönen Strom.
Im schönen Strome, da schlägt sich in die Wellen mit seinem großen Dome. Das große, das heilige Quell. Im Dom, da steht ein Bildnis auf goldenem Leder gemalt. In meines Lebens Wildnis hat's freundlich hineingestrahlt. Es schweben's Blumen dort Englein um unsere liebe Frau. Die
The next one is on a poem by Goethe. And in this poem, he talks about over all the countryside, it is stillness and peace. There is not even a bird moving in the trees. Everything is still. And then he says, Goethe, soon you too shall have peace. And it's such a powerful, amazing poem. And when they found Goethe dead in a house in a hilltop, this poem was literally carved into the stone wall. And you can go see pictures of this. It's kind of amazing. So very powerful piece. And Liszt, it's been set by Schubert, I think, as well. But Liszt sets it in much more, he really captures that stillness. And this, I think it illustrates what a brilliant composer he really was. I was having a conversation with Nico Muley the other day, and he said, you know, when you're writing an opera, you're writing vocal music, it's really better not to have the best poetry. You kind of need mediocre poetry. And this next song, I think, is a good example of that. It's kind of mediocre poetry about the the difference, between spiritual love and earthly love, like we were talking about. But it's mediocre poetry, and yet Liszt elevates it with his incredible music making. And I think that's a fun kind of exercise for this this afternoon.
In Liebesarmen ruht ihr Trocken, das Lebensfrüchte winken euch. Ein Blick nur ist auf mich gesunken, doch bin ich vor euch ahnenreich. Das Glück der Erde miss ich gerne, ja, das Glück der Erde miss ich gerne, und blick als Märtyrer hinan, und blick ein Märtyrer hinan, denn über mir im Golde Ferne hat sich der Himmel aufgetan, denn über mir im Golde Ferne hat sich der Himmel aufgetan.
And the last one in this little Liszt set that we're doing is my favorite. I don't know why. It's not so much the poetry that I connect to, although I love that, and especially in this moment. It is hearing the bells of a church on the hill of Marling. And as you hear those bells and the clanging of them, you think, may they protect me and protect me well. And so it's a kind of song of protection, which I feel is important for these times. But it's the harmonies. These are the real Wagnerian harmonies that I hear. There is something about the changing, the way he kind of builds up. Don't feel free to say something. Okay.
Sure. And this is from around the time of Parsifal. So.
Yeah, this around the time of Parsifal. I don't know. I never know how much the mic picks up because we have it set to the singing level, which is very low down. That's why I keep picking it up when I'm talking. If only you were here and you could hear how gloriously resonant this room is. But it's the way he changes harmony. Sometimes, these repeated chords, which are a very Liszt thing, but the harmonies almost feel like a Parsifal or even a Tristan to me. See if you hear what I'm talking about.
Ihre Glocken von Marling, wie brauset ihr so Heiliges Läuten als Sänge der Quell. Ihr Glocken von Marling, eine heiliger Gesang, wollet wie schützend den wirklichen Klang.
All righty. We're just going to do one last little set here. And it is a little bit of Gershwin, because when I was a little boy, this is, of course, the first music I sang. And I know that Isaac may be watching, so I am not going to do I Got Rhythm. That is just because I know you've had enough of it. We did I Got Rhythm on the bandwagon. Many of you may know I was privileged to be able to partner with the New York Phil and create this bandwagon thing, and we did 81 concerts, and gosh, we must have done I Got Rhythm on like 60 of them. So I thought I would spare Isaac and give you some different Gershwin today. The first one is the story of an opera. I'm not even going to tell you which, and see if you can guess which opera that is. This next one, you know the song, but you don't always hear the introduction. And I think it accurately describes my teenage years. That's all I'll say.
Dozens of girls would storm up. I had to lock my door. Somehow I couldn't warm up to one before. What was it that controlled me? What kept my love life lean? My intuition told me you'd come on the scene. Hey, you, listen to the rhythm of my heartbeat, and you'll me, my sweet embraceable you. Embrace me, you irreplaceable you. Just one look at you, my heart grew tipsy in me. You and you alone bring out the gypsy in me. I love all the many charms about you. Above all, I want my arms around you. Don't be a naughty baby. Come to Papa, do. My sweet embraceable you.
Yay. And for the last thing, I couldn't make this up. This song is too perfect. We've never done it before. You're getting a premiere. Brian and I usually test things out. But it's so perfect. I promise I didn't change any of the words. It is just about 2020 and 2021. It's everything that happened in those times. But it was written by Gershwin. And of course, the first voice I heard and said I got to sing was Ella Fitzgerald. So I always sing it in the style of Ella Fitzgerald.
Zoom, 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 zoom. The world is in a mess with politics and taxes and people grinding axes. There's no happiness. Zoom, 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 zoom. Rhythm, lead your race. The future doesn't fret me. This I can only get me someone to slap that bass. Happiness is not a riddle when I'm listening to that big bass fiddle. Slap that bass, slap it till it's dizzy. Slap that bass, keep the rhythm busy. Zoom, 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 misery, you got to go. Slap that bass, use it like a tonic. Slap that bass, keep your Philharmonic. Zoom, 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 and the milk and honey will flow. Dictators would be better off if they zoom, zoom now and then. Today you can see that the happiest men all got rhythm. In which case, if you want a bubble, slap that bass, slap away your trouble. Learn to zoom, 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 slap that bass. Zoom, 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 zoom.
Thank you so much, Paul. It is so great for us musicians to be able to make music together, and it's so great to join all of you incredible friends. I think that Mirong is going to put the link to Zoom in the chat, and we're going to hop over to Zoom and all discuss everything. So we will see you there. Okay, bye.